This is a hip sequence that I like to do prior to balancing, really helps with my handstands, especially when I'm making funky shapes. But also those of you just working on actually getting into your handstand, it can really help to have your hips and your hamstrings open for that. We're going to begin in a squat position, but just toe heel your feet out and lift your hips up. So we're ending up in this wide stance. Hands can be on the floor or they can be elevated. We're just going to, or even on the hips, shimmy the weight across side to side into these easy sort of Cossacks. Gradually you can begin to work your way down if your body allows you to. So we start to come deeper down, maybe all the way into the bottom. You can lift this heel if the ankles are feeling tight. And we can also add rotation in the hip on the side where the leg's extended. So think about the foot turns up as the hip rotates out. Move through both of those positions to get into the hamstrings and the adductors. Move across. And if this feels way too much, what I'd suggest doing is just doing, say, 5 to 10 repetitions per leg, but with your foot elevated, and that can be on top of a chair. You don't have to be able to do this ground level. So from this one, we're going to turn into a lunge. Hands can be on the floor, or they can be elevated on blocks. I'm going to have both hands inside that front foot. Move around into the hips a little bit first. We'll add some rotation. The inside hand reaches up 3 times. As you come down, you can have a go at bringing hand to the floor or forearm. This other hand can move further out the way to make that space. We're back in that lunge position. Lower the back knee. Lift your body up tall. We're going to send the hips back into a hinge to get into the hamstrings. So hips push back, front toes lift up. Now I can have a bend in the front knee. It doesn't need to be straight. You can hook your back toes for balance. And if you're a bit more flexible, you can obviously bring the hands down. Think about tilting your pelvis forwards, pushing your bum back. You should feel the belly of your hamstrings there. We go back to lunge and to Cossack, and then the same on the other side. So move across into your lunge. Moving around into that lunge position, hands inside the foot. We'll add our twists, inside hand reaches up. Maybe you draw the forearm down. Back to our lunge, lower the back knee, hinge at the hips and work into the hamstrings. Again, in your hamstrings, you can actually add those rotations in the hip again. The foot will then turn in and out, feel different areas of the hamstrings. We want to keep moving on this sequence, keeping it nice and dynamic so we can really build some heat. You can do this whole sequence with your foot elevated on a box or a chair. I just recommend sticking with a few reps on one side and then the other so you don't have to keep switching over. So we'll add those twists. Lower the back knee and hinge. You can add those rotations in the hip. Keep the chest open and the eyes up. This will stop you wanting to just round through the back as well. And again. Gently push down through the heel too. You'll feel more activation in the hamstrings. Let's do it once more each side. From there, go back to your wide stance. Bring your hands to your hips. The knees can bend, come all the way up to standing, and we're just going to do 10 good mornings. So from here, hands are on the hips. What we want to do is think about pushing the hips back. You can have a bend in the knee, make sure the knees track the toes, and we don't end up going too wide with the feet, the knees then cave in. So hips push back, knees can bend, feel the hamstrings, squeeze your glutes and open your hips. You can do that bent leg or straight leg. Control it on the way down. Pull up on your quads, muscles above the knees. Squeeze your glutes, feel glutes and hamstrings helping to extend the hips. And then from there, toe heel your feet in and sit back into your squat. Sitting into that squat, having a bit of a wiggle about, add a couple of rotations each side, opening up a bit more into the spine, into the hips as well. And then from there, hips should feel a little bit more open, ready to go. This is normally the sort of time that I then start to build into handstand hops because hips are feeling nice and open by this point. So use that hip warm up to just dynamically get your hips open and moving prior to your balancing.